I didn't see you push it, but then I thought you'd already pushed it. We're just going to edit out our general comments.
Now it's recording.
Dang, we were pretty good,
I know. It was a good conversation. Okay, let's start this over now that we've had a chance to rehearse. Shut that door, because I did hear sounds coming from that way. Unbelievable. I'm glad I didn't drive to Maryville to do this and then drive off without it on there.
Man, I thought we were doing pretty good.
We were doing great. You were doing great there. Okay.
No, I don't remember what I said.
Well, that's okay. It is. I want to make sure it's moving this time. Yep, 35 seconds. Hello, this is Pastor Terry Goodman, and I want to welcome you to the Wesleyan Connection. This podcast is primarily for the clergy and laity of the Holston Annual Conference. Join with me now as I take a look around the Connection and share some of the things happening in the churches of our annual conference. What you just heard for that intro to this interview was a brief conversation that Jeff and I had when I realized that about 12 minutes into our initial interview, I forgot to push the record button. That's right. A consummate pro that I am, I forgot to actually turn the recorder on so that it would record our conversation. And once we got it going, we realized we've got to do this thing again. And so we, as you can tell, had a lot of fun that day. And the interview that you're about to listen to comes just after that hilarity of the moment when we realized how dumb I had been by forgetting to push the button. But Jeff is the district superintendent in Big Stone Gap. There's a lot of things going on in this district. That is my home district, and I wanted to get him a chance to share from the district superintendent's viewpoint some of the things that he felt were important. And so sit back and enjoy what Jeff has to say. Hi, Terry Goodman here, and it's Monday morning with the district superintendent. Today I'm talking with my next door neighbor, literally, Jeff Wright, the district superintendent here in Big Stone Gap, Virginia. I think we have a unique relationship in that aspect.
We do. We live right beside each other.
So I get to see him, and he gets to see me, and so far we have gotten along fairly well.
Well, our relationship goes back a number of years. We served together in Chilhowie, Virginia, early in ministry, so we've known each other for a long time. But as I always say, that's BK. It's before you had kids and before I was having kids.
You were. And we were just starting as we left, so that is a while back. When I think about the Big Stone Gap District, I'd heard about it all my ministry, and this is, to be honest, I never quite understood where it was at. I knew it was somewhere up in Virginia. For those that might be listening down in Chattanooga or somewhere else, how would you explain where we are at in this district?
The Big Stone Gap District is the district that borders Tennessee and Kentucky. It's the small tip that really runs down toward Cumberland Gap. It's the very end of the state of Virginia. It encompasses Lee County, Scott County, Wise County, Dixon County, and a couple of churches in Russell County. It goes down toward Kingsport, and so it's quite an encompass of territory, but it's just that last bastion of the state of Virginia. It's that last section of the state of Virginia.
I have a lot of teachers in my church, and they say that their friends in Richmond think the state ends at Roanoke, and they say, oh no, there's several more hours to go.
Well, what's interesting, my 9th grade math teacher is a member of the Clintwood Church. And she used to joke, and when I was in 9th grade, I remember this, when she would go to teachers' conventions, that people would ask her where she was from, and she'd try to describe it, and she'd just say, oh, that little corner they always cut off and put up in the other part of the map. They don't think it's part of the state. So,
well, when you think of a district with that kind of expanse, over, I think you mentioned 4 different counties, and quite a bit of driving from all the way Cumberland Gap to up in Dickinson there in Clintwood. How do you schedule or plan ministry for such a wide geographic area?
Well, that's a challenge, and that's a challenge that we're evolving in. It's really hard for us to do a district event and have good participation from the full district, because it's just hard for people to get there. We had one back in February, and it was very successful. We're looking to do some more things, but one of the things we're looking at doing is doing some regional things, maybe like in Lee County event or a Scott County event or a Wise County event for those churches. And so one of the things we've done is we've tried to start modeling that in our district ministers meetings, where we're having our devotions and announcements, but then we break off into what I call clusters. Some people call them missional hubs. We call them clusters, that where the pastors from certain geographical areas or counties meet together to learn who each other are, to talk about issues, but also just to build relationships and talk about how they can do ministry together and see themselves as working together.
One of the things that you think of when you think about the district, we've had a grant, and we have a trailer now. I think you said it's 24 foot.
24 foot.
We're going to use that in different ways. How do you envision that becoming something that we use district-wide or within, for specific ministries within the district maybe?
One of the dreams of the trailer is that we are going to try to restructure it or remodel it a little bit where it could serve food, like in the event of emergency situations, floodings, tornadoes, or bad storms. We could take and serve food out of it. So far, we're using it to serve, do meals, not meals, but food. We take food to different areas. Connie Purcell's used it some. We're fixing in a couple of weeks to go to Knoxville to pick up a ton of seed potatoes and bring them back to the district and distribute to the different food banks in our district. So far, we've used it for different things like that. One of the joys that I've been able to help with that is we had someone donate pretty much a trailer load of toys, and we took them to the primary school here in Big Stone Gap, and we have a relationship with them through your church and the backpack program that you all do there. And we were just let the kids come out and go in and get a toy and see them just thrilled about getting something new. And there was one little boy, got about 2 or 3, and just had such a smile on his face. We weren't going to stop him from taking 2 or 3. But, things like that where we can go, we can take it throughout the district, like if a church is having a harvest day or Lord's Acre sale and wants us to come by, different things like that. We can use it we'll probably use it to take the conference mission projects that we do every year for annual conference. We'll take them down with the trailer. So different things we can use it for.
I could see going to a community and setting up a one-day vacation Bible school.
Correct.
Or something like that.
Yeah.
Put tents and everything out. The possibilities are endless, and we got that through a grant.
Through a grant from the Holston Conference.
So those grants out there, folks, apply for them.
Exactly.
Because I've received a grant at my church to feed people. Brad out of East Stone received a grant to...
Connie received a grant to do a cooking class. We've had a lot of churches apply for these grants in our district, and I think that's been something that's been new because the conference is really making those funds available more so now because they had people donate the funds. But also, it's sometimes we look at our little rural district doesn't get much. Well, we're applying, and sometimes when you apply, you get what you apply for. So that's good.
You're bringing, I guess, the decision making down to the local level. The conference is not saying go and do this and here's the money to do it.
No.
We're saying here's a ministry we're doing. Is there any money that can help us to accomplish?
Correct. And that's what I did back in February when we had that district gathering. We had a day where we brought everybody, leaders from all the local churches together, and we did a rally type thing, appreciation for leadership, but also a celebration. Looking at how we can do ministry. We talked about 2 questions. What does God want to see happen in your church, and what has to change to make God a reality, for that to become a reality in your church? And so it was a great day, but we funded that through a grant from the conference for evangelism. So it was good.
So it sounds like there's a lot of different opportunities for ministry within the district, and the churches are stepping forward. You've got churches with food banks. You've got churches doing all kinds of stuff through the width and the breadth of the district. So like you say, we may be a more rural district. I don't even know how big the biggest city or town would be, but
it's probably a Big Stone Gap.
We got about 5,000 or 6,000 in population here. So we're not a huge area, but I think we've got heart.
We do.
I think we've got love for our neighbors,
and we're seeing it more and more. I am, especially when I go to churches and hear what all they're doing. Even when I came for my introductory meeting, and we went around the table for the district superintendency committee, and all the people around the table started talking about what they were doing. I was surprised. I'd never heard that stuff, and Bishop Taylor was surprised she hadn't heard some of that stuff. But we had a lot of great ministries going on here.
Well, prior to you becoming a DS, you were a pastor in a church, and I'm sure you had notions of what a DS did. But when you stepped across that threshold and made that transition from church pastor to DS, what were some of the surprises?
One of the surprises was that I had to repent for everything I'd ever said about a DS, because, it's easy to sit back and think, well, if I was a DS, I'd do this, or this is what DSs ought to be doing. But when you get into the office and to the role, you see that sometimes it's a lot different than you anticipated. There's a lot of time consumption that's involved in traveling. You're dealing with a lot of issues sometimes. Even with appointments, a lot of times we think appointment making's 1 week a year, but I've dealt with appointment open churches every year I've been here. So you've got to do those things. You got to deal with personnel issues. You've got to deal with people who are mad at their pastor. You've got to deal with pastors who are mad at their churches. So there's a lot of different variables that you don't see in everyday life if you're just looking at what a DS should do. So my perspective's changed a lot. But it's also grown a lot in my appreciation for this role, because it's not as easy as it looks on paper.
Well, when you're the local church pastor, you have a defined congregation, those folks that are there in the church. I guess as a DS, part of your defined congregation is going to be the pastors. But how do the churches fit in? Do you see them as part of it?
I do. And I may be one of the few DSs that might feel that way, but part of mine is that I grew up in this district. My dad served for 21 years in this district, so this is home for me. And so I've known most of these churches all my life. And so I have a great connection with them that maybe a DS from somewhere out of this area coming in would not have. So, but I'm also a pastor at heart, so that's part of it too, that I want to make sure the churches can thrive and grow. And so I do look at that as part of it. As my ministry here as well, is to help churches do what they can do, help pastors grow, and help them lead their churches. So it's a varied role, but it's also a role that I think is very important.
The other Monday mornings with the DS, I've talked with the DSs about the appointment making process. Those were all before the appointment making process began. You're the first one I've got to ask the question of after the major appointment week is behind. What can you share about that kind of week?
Well, it's a fun week in the fact that fun, I'm saying facetiously, it's a tough week. There is a lot of work that goes into that. There's a lot of dynamics. It's not just throwing darts at a wall or trying to flip coins or do anything. There's a lot of prayer. There's a lot of discernment that goes into that. You're dealing with things that people in the general population of the conference don't know about. Situations with pastors, situations with churches. I mean, we've got some churches, I'll be honest with you, that sometimes they're just not very nice to pastors. And we got some pastors sometimes that aren't very nice to churches. We got pastors that, have different gifts and graces. So you have to spend a lot of time discerning, talking, thinking, praying about what's best for the churches. How can we best help them be in ministry? And will this pastor do it, or will that pastor do it? Or, how do we match up those gifts and graces with the needs? So it's quite intense. I was worn out, as you said. I looked like a zombie for a few days after I got back, but a lot of hard, prayerful work that goes into it that I didn't realize the depth of it till I became able to walk into that room.
Part of you also have sort of a bird's eye view maybe of the upcoming annual conference. What are some of the things that maybe we can expect at annual conference?
Annual conference, the theme this year is going to be Behold, and it's going to start off with a picture of doors and a huge open door. We're supposed to, behold, God's going to do something new. Behold what God is doing. And so one of the things that I'm excited about is to see the graphics that we're using. All the DSs went out and took pictures or had somebody take pictures of different church doors in their districts, and they've created a great montage of those doors, 3 of which are from our district because I took the pictures and submitted them and I've already recognized them. But we're going to use that theme. But part of that theme that I'm excited about is not only behold, but it's a call for us to go out of our doors and see what's out there and see what we can be as the church to the world today, and not just stay inside our doors. That's always fun. One of my favorite is the memorial service, because I'm very close to a lot of pastors who have passed away this year. So that's always a moving time for me. We're going to hear CFA, we'll hear budget reports, we'll hear about pensions and insurance and those costs that are always rising. We'll hear a report from the conference strategy team, and I think you're going to do an interview on that later before we do annual conference to hear what might be coming up in that report. So it's always a fun time to gather at Junaluska, but it's always some stress there too.
Well, let me ask you 2 questions left. The first one is, what is it that keeps you in ministry? What is the fire in your belly that makes you keep doing this thing that you do?
The simple answer is, I believe God called me to this, and so when I feel like God's called me to leave, I won't do it anymore. I grew up, like I said, in this district. My dad was a local pastor. I did not want to be a pastor. That was the farthest thing from my mind. But yet, after I graduated college and worked for 4 years, I felt the call to ministry and answered the call to ministry. And what was interesting was I graduated in Henry, and I had several different areas I could have went into. And in those 4 years between my graduation and my time to accept my call to ministry, I was actually in all those fields and was not fulfilled, was not happy, was always searching for something else, something different. And when I've been in ministry, it's when I felt fulfilled and when I've answered my call. So my passion is to help people connect with Christ, see Christ, and experience Christ's love and grace, and live in that life. And so that keeps me going. And throughout my ministry, I've been able to do that in different roles, and I see that even as a role as I serve as a district superintendent.
Okay, I've saved the most complex theological question for last.
Okay.
What is your favorite dessert?
My favorite dessert is German chocolate cake.
With does that have the nuts and the coconut icing?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
My mama spoiled me. My mama used to make me one at least every year for my birthday from scratch. So that's my all-time favorite dessert.
Well, I appreciate you sharing with us this morning, and I will pray for your ministry. Since you are my district superintendent, you are on my prayer list.
Well, I appreciate that. You're one of my pastors, so you're on my prayer list. Your family babysits my dog, so we love each.
We're connected.
We're connected, yeah.
Well, thank you very much, Jeff.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Let me interject a programming note at this point. This series of podcasts, Monday Mornings with the DS, I started about 8 weeks ago. Was going to have a conversation with every district superintendent. I got a lot of them done when we were at convocation. However, couldn't get everybody. And there's about 5 district superintendents that I've still yet to get a conversation down on tape, so to speak. I'm still going to try to do that, but until I do, I have nothing to put up on Monday morning. So I will put them back up as soon as I can get together and get in the same place that they are to make the recording. So this will probably be the last Monday morning with the DS that you hear for a few weeks, because I've just got to find the time to go to them and sit down with them and make these recordings. So I hope that you have been enjoying them, and keep listening. Check back every now and then, because I do hope to get the other 5 interviews up and on the site, hopefully before annual conference. This is Pastor Goodman. Thanks for listening to this edition of the Wesleyan Connection. Be sure to check back often for more podcasts.